Scotland sits at the northern edge of Great Britain, bordered by England to the south and framed on all other sides by water, the North Sea to the east, and the Atlantic to the west and north. Its shape is rugged and irregular, a coastline broken by hundreds of sea lochs, peninsulas, and islands that seem to drift between fog and horizon. It's a small country by size, yet every few miles the landscape changes, from rolling farmland to mountain walls, from deep glens to glass-still lochs. This is a land where geography defines identity. The Highlands, occupying the northern half, are wild and sparsely populated, a terrain of granite peaks and empty moorland. To the south lie the lowlands, where the majority of Scots live, in fertile valleys and cities built on trade and culture. And beyond the mainland, more than 790 islands extend into the cold Atlantic, each with its own rhythm, accent, and history. From above, Scotland looks carved by time and weather. Glaciers once shaped its contours, leaving behind a geography that feels both dramatic and deliberate. Today, that same topography attracts travelers from around the world, hikers tracing the West Highland Way, climbers drawn to Ben Nevis, photographers chasing light over the Isle of Skye. Every part of the country seems designed to remind you of nature's scale and how humans adapt to it. The climate here is unpredictable. Rain can sweep in from the Atlantic without warning. And within minutes, sunlight can pierce through, painting the land in sudden color. Locals often joke that Scotland can show you all 4 seasons in a single day, and it's true. This shifting weather gives the landscape its constant motion. The shimmer of lochs under low clouds, the sway of heather in the wind, the echo of waves against cliffs. Culturally, Scotland's identity is rooted in endurance. For centuries, people have worked with the land, not against it. Crofters in the Hebrides, shepherds in the borders, fishermen on the North Sea coast. The castles that still crown its hills are reminders of a turbulent history. Wars of independence, clan rivalries, and moments that shaped a nation's pride. Yet amid those struggles, there's always been art, song, and invention. From the music of bagpipes to the writings of Robert Burns and the discoveries of Scottish scientists, creativity here seems to grow out of resilience. Traveling through Scotland means constantly crossing boundaries between wildness and civilization, isolation and community, ancient and modern. A road might lead from a glass-fronted museum in Glasgow to a stone circle that predates history itself. The same mist that covers the mountains in the Highlands can roll down to touch the rooftops of Edinburgh's Old Town. These connections, physical and cultural, form the backbone of what Scotland is today. What makes the country unforgettable isn't just its beauty, but how alive it feels. The sound of wind across open moors, the smell of peat smoke in small villages, the reflection of clouds in still water. Each moment carries a quiet power, not dramatic or mystical, but deeply human. Scotland's story is not one of mystery, it's one of relationship. Between land and people, between the past that shaped it and the future it continues to build. Every loch, every glen, every worn stone tells a part of that story. Not as legend, but as lived experience. And as we travel through this land, from its cities to its islands, from the heart of its mountains to the edge of its seas, we begin to understand how geography, history, and spirit combine to give Scotland its unique shape. Not just on the map, but in the imagination of those who walk it. Few capitals in the world balance history and daily life as naturally as Edinburgh. Built across a line of ancient volcanic hills, the city feels carved from the rock itself. Steep, layered, and endlessly photogenic. It's a place where the past isn't preserved behind glass. It's walked on, lived in, and echoed through every cobblestone street. The heart of the city is divided in two. To the south, the old town climbs like a spine from Holyrood Palace up to Edinburgh Castle, sitting high on Castle Rock. The Royal Mile connects the two. A narrow street lined with stone tenements, closes, and courtyards that haven't changed in centuries. Its uneven pavement carries centuries of footsteps, monks, merchants, and monarchs alike. Behind the main road, small alleys drop steeply toward the valley below, revealing secret gardens, pubs, and viewpoints that open suddenly over the city. To the north lies the new town, built in the 18th century as a vision of order and progress. Wide avenues, elegant Georgian townhouses, and leafy squares show the confidence of the Enlightenment era, when Edinburgh was known as the Athens of the North. Here, reason and architecture came together, symmetry, light, and proportion reflecting a society proud of its learning. Today, these two halves, medieval and modern, face each other across Princes Street Gardens, separated by a stretch of green that was once a loch. Together, they form one of the most visually striking cityscapes in Europe. Above it all, Edinburgh Castle dominates the skyline. Once a royal residence and fortress, now a symbol of national pride, its ramparts look out across the Firth of Forth and the rolling Pentland Hills beyond. Below the castle, Arthur's Seat, the remains of an ancient volcano rises out of Holyrood Park. The short climb rewards visitors with panoramic views, the city's spires and domes, the waters of the North Sea, and clouds drifting low over distant hills. Every August, Edinburgh transforms into a stage. The Fringe Festival, the largest arts festival in the world, takes over the city's streets, pubs, and theaters. Comedy, drama, and street performance, creativity spills from every corner. Locals share space with artists and tourists from across the globe, and the city hums with energy. Just a few months later, in winter, it hosts Hogmanay, Scotland's famous New Year celebration. A mix of tradition and revelry, marked by torchlight processions, fireworks, and music echoing through the old streets. But Edinburgh isn't just a museum or a stage, it's a living, breathing capital. The University of Edinburgh brings thousands of students every year, filling the cafes, libraries, and music bars with conversation and ideas. In the mornings, you can hear the sound of bagpipes from street performers mixing with the grind of espresso machines. At dusk, the city lights flicker on, and the scent of malt from nearby distilleries drifts faintly through the air. Beyond its postcard views, Edinburgh has a rhythm of quiet contrasts. Tourists climb Calton Hill for sunset, while locals jog along the water of Leith. In tiny pubs, folk musicians play to small crowds who sing along. Books are everywhere, from historic libraries to tucked-away independent shops. A reminder that this city has always been a place of words, home to writers from Robert Louis Stevenson to J.K. Rowling. To walk through Edinburgh is to move through layers of time. Medieval, Georgian, Victorian, all visible, all connected. The stones may be cold, but the city feels alive. Its beauty isn't only in its architecture, but in how people use it, to study, to create, to celebrate. Glasgow doesn't reveal itself in the same way as Edinburgh. It's less about postcard beauty and more about energy. The kind that hums through streets, conversations, and music. Scotland's largest city was once the beating heart of the Industrial Revolution, its skyline filled with cranes, chimneys, and the glow of shipyard fires along the River Clyde. For generations, Glasgow built ships that sailed the world, carrying with them a reputation for craftsmanship and hard work. By the mid-20th century, that world began to collapse. The shipyards closed, factories fell silent, and unemployment spread. For a while, Glasgow became a symbol of industrial decline, a city defined by what it had lost. But that was only part of its story. What came next was one of the most remarkable transformations in modern Britain. A shift from heavy industry to culture, design, and creativity. Today, the same Clyde that once carried cargo now reflects the glass facades of new museums, studios, and universities. The Riverside Museum, designed by Zaha Hadid, stands near the water's edge as a tribute to the city's engineering past, filled with locomotives, trams, and the skeletons of ships that once defined Glasgow's might. Nearby, the Finnieston Crane still towers above the skyline, a reminder of what was built here and how far the city has come. In the city's west end, the Kelvin Grove Art Gallery and Museum captures that blend of heritage and renewal. Behind its red sandstone walls are everything from Renaissance paintings to exhibits on Glasgow's social history. Across the park rises the University of Glasgow, founded in 1451, a masterpiece of Gothic Revival architecture overlooking the River Kelvin. Its halls and cloisters have produced thinkers, writers, and scientists for centuries. When sunlight filters through its arches, it feels timeless, yet just outside, the surrounding streets are full of life. Record shops, vintage cafes, students chatting on benches under the trees. The transformation of Glasgow wasn't only physical, it was cultural, a shift in identity from a city of labor to a city of expression. By the 1980s and 1990s, artists and musicians began to fill the old warehouses. Bands like Simple Minds and Franz Ferdinand carried the city's voice far beyond Scotland. In 1990, Glasgow was named European City of Culture, an acknowledgement of how creativity could rebuild what industry had left behind. But for all its change, Glasgow's spirit has remained constant. Glaswegians are known for their humor, dry, direct, and disarming. There's warmth in their conversation, a kind of collective honesty that makes visitors feel instantly welcome. Ask for directions, and you'll likely get a story, not just an answer. The city's pride isn't in its monuments, but in its people, a community that endured hard years and still greets the world with laughter. Walking through Glasgow today, you'll find murals turning concrete walls into color, street markets replacing warehouses, and music spilling from venues every night of the week. The Barrowland Ballroom, once a dance hall for factory workers, is now a legendary stage for global artists. The Merchant City blends 18th century warehouses with modern cafes and galleries. Even the Clyde Arc Bridge, nicknamed the Squinty Bridge for its curved angle, feels like a symbol of the city. Bold, practical, and unpretentious. Glasgow's renewal isn't polished. It's real. It's seen in the laughter echoing through pubs, in murals painted by local artists, in neighborhoods that have learned to reinvent themselves without losing who they are. The city doesn't hide its rough edges. It celebrates them as part of its story. If Edinburgh is Scotland's window to the past, Glasgow is its mirror to the present, creative, resilient, and alive with possibility. The cranes may be gone, but the rhythm of the city hasn't stopped. It's simply changed tempo. from the clang of metal to the beat of music, conversation, and imagination. The Scottish Highlands begin where the land starts to rise, a region that feels less like a destination and more like another world. Covering almost half of Scotland's landmass but home to only a small fraction of its people, the Highlands are defined by space, silence, and a sense of timelessness. Here, distances stretch and the human presence fades, replaced by mountains, moors, and the sound of wind moving through heather. Geographically, the Highlands stretch from Fort William and Loch Leany in the west across Inverness, up toward the northern coast, and the rugged peninsulas that meet the Atlantic. The Grampian Mountains and the Northwest Highlands form the backbone of this region, carved long ago by glaciers that left deep valleys, or glens, and narrow freshwater lakes known as lochs. Between them lies an ancient landscape that still feels raw, its colors shifting constantly with the weather. The climate here is unpredictable and powerful. Rain can sweep across the hills without warning, only to break into sudden shafts of sunlight that turn everything gold. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of pine and peat. In winter, snow settles on the peaks. In summer, the light stretches far into the night, casting long shadows over endless moorland. The Highlands remind visitors how small they are, not in a romantic sense, but in a physical, almost humbling way. Among the region's icons, none is more famous than Ben Nevis, Britain's highest mountain, rising 1,345 meters above sea level near Fort William. Its summit, often lost in cloud, draws thousands of climbers every year, from seasoned mountaineers to hikers chasing the view. The climb is demanding but rewarding, a direct connection between earth, weather, and endurance. Not far from here lies Glencoe, a valley steeped in both natural grandeur and history. Towering cliffs rise on either side, their slopes streaked with waterfalls and mist. In 1692, this glen was the site of the massacre of Glencoe, when members of the MacDonald clan were killed after offering hospitality to government troops. Today, it stands as one of Scotland's most photographed landscapes. Not because of tragedy, but because of the way the land seems to hold memory. The silence here feels heavy, but not mournful. It's the silence of a place that has seen everything and endures still. Further north, Loch Ness cuts a deep line through the Great Glen, a fault valley that runs almost coast to coast. The loch stretches for nearly 37 kilometers and holds more water than all the lakes of England and Wales combined. Its dark surface has inspired centuries of stories, of monsters and mysteries, but its real allure lies in its scale and atmosphere. Standing on its shores, you understand why legends were born here. The water seems endless, the light constantly shifting. Around the loch, small villages like Drumna Drochit and Fort Augustus live quietly on tourism and local trade, reminders that life continues amid the vastness. Traveling through the Highlands means moving through solitude. Roads wind between peaks, and hours can pass without meeting another car. Small white cottages appear suddenly in the landscape, their chimneys trailing smoke into the gray sky. Red deer cross open hillsides, and golden eagles circle high above the ridges. The human presence is light, respectful, shaped by centuries of living with, not against the land. What defines the Highlands is scale, not just the height of mountains or the length of glens, but the sense of space that allows thought and stillness. It's a landscape that doesn't ask to be admired. It simply exists, immense and indifferent, and in that indifference lies its beauty. For travelers, the Highlands are more than scenery. They are an encounter with nature stripped to its essentials: light, wind, stone, and silence. Standing at the edge of a loch or watching clouds roll over a ridge, you begin to understand why this region is called the heart of the wild. It's not just remote, it's elemental. And once you've been here, every sound and color stays with you long after you've left. In the heart of the Scottish Highlands, between Fort William and Rannoch Moor, lies Glencoe, a valley often described as both beautiful and unsettling. The name itself comes from the River Coe that cuts through it, winding for 16 kilometers between steep mountains shaped by volcanic fire and Ice Age glaciers. On a clear day, the peaks rise sharply into the sky. On most days, clouds drift low over their ridges, and mist curls through the valley like smoke. The road that runs through Glencoe follows the line of the old glacial floor, hemmed in by massive walls of rock. To the south, the Three Sisters, a trio of steep ridges, dominate the view. Streams fall in thin silver threads down their faces, gathering in the river below. In the distance, waterfalls cut through dark gullies, their sound carried by the wind. It's a place where the weather is constantly in motion, fog appearing and vanishing within minutes, sunlight breaking through for a moment before rain returns. The changing light gives the valley a restless beauty, as if the landscape itself is breathing. But Glencoe is not only known for its scenery, it holds one of the most painful stories in Scottish history, the Massacre of 1692. After centuries of clan rivalries, the newly crowned King William III demanded loyalty from all Highland clans. The MacDonalds of Glencoe were late in pledging their oath. Under orders from the government, a company of soldiers, many from the rival Campbell clan, was sent to stay with the MacDonalds through winter, receiving their food and hospitality. In the early hours of February 13th, the soldiers turned on their hosts. "38 men were killed in their homes. Others fled into the snow-covered hills, where many died of exposure." The massacre shocked the Highlands not just for its violence, but for the betrayal it represented. An attack carried out against people who had offered shelter. Today, there is little in the valley to mark the event. A small memorial stone stands near the village of Glencoe beside the river, where visitors leave flowers or pebbles in quiet respect. The mountains watch over it silently. Nature has long since reclaimed the ground, but the sense of what happened lingers. The story has become part of Scotland's collective memory, a symbol of endurance, not vengeance. It speaks to the resilience of a people who have faced hardship and kept their identity intact. Standing in Glencoe, it's easy to understand why the place leaves such a deep impression. The valley's scale dwarfs everything. Even on calm days, there's a tension in the air, not ominous, but powerful. The silence feels full, shaped by wind, water, and history. When fog rolls down from the ridges, it blurs the lines between earth and sky, and the landscape becomes something abstract, stripped of color and detail. Then as the light shifts again, every ridge and waterfall comes sharply back into view. For travelers, Glencoe represents more than a scenic stop on the way north. It's a living landscape, one that holds memory in its soil and stone. Locals will tell you that no matter how often you visit, it never looks the same twice. The weather changes the valley's mood, and with it, your experience of being there. Glencoe is, above all, a place of contrast, beauty and sorrow, history and stillness, fragility and endurance. It reminds visitors that Scotland's landscapes are not just backdrops to stories, they are the stories themselves. The land has witnessed everything and forgotten nothing. Off Scotland's northwest coast lies the Isle of Skye, the largest of the Inner Hebrides and one of the country's most dramatic landscapes. Its name, from the Old Norse Skye, meaning cloud island, fits perfectly. This is a place where weather moves faster than thought. where light and shadow constantly redraw the terrain. The island stretches about 80 kilometers from north to south, its coastline carved into deep-sea lochs and rugged peninsulas. The most famous road in is over the Skye Bridge, connecting the village of Isle of Skye to the mainland. For centuries, Skye was accessible only by ferry, and though the bridge now makes travel easier, the island still feels remote, separated more by atmosphere than distance. Visitors arriving by the older Armadale ferry from Mallaig often say that crossing by sea still gives the truest sense of arrival. The feeling of leaving one world and entering another. At the heart of Skye stand the Cuillin Mountains, a dark, jagged range often hidden in mist. The Black Cuillin rise steep and sharp, a challenge even for skilled climbers, while the gentler Red Cuillin roll in smooth, rust-colored slopes nearby. The mountains dominate the skyline and shape the island's weather. Clouds form and break over their peaks in minutes. On clear days, the view from Sligachan is one of the finest in Scotland. The Cuillin reflected in still water, framed by endless sky. Further north, the landscape softens, but becomes no less surreal. The Quirang on the Trotternish Peninsula looks almost alien, a landslip of pinnacles, cliffs, and terraces sculpted by ancient geological shifts. Walking among them feels like stepping into a dream. The ground rises and falls in strange patterns, light flickering over moss, stone, and heather. Every turn reveals a new angle, vast coastal views one moment, shadowed valleys the next. It's one of the few places where photography struggles to keep up with reality. Near Glen Brittle, a short hike leads to the fairy pools. Clear, turquoise streams cascading through dark volcanic rock. Even on overcast days, the water glows with an otherworldly color. Some travelers brave the cold for a brief swim. Most simply watch and listen as the water tumbles down from the Cuillin, a reminder of how pure and raw this island remains. Despite its growing popularity, Skye's soul lies in its small Gaelic-speaking communities. Villages like Portree, Dunvegan, and Staffin are home to people whose families have lived here for generations. Many still connected to crofting, small-scale farming that has shaped the land for centuries. The Gaelic language is woven into daily life, on road signs, in songs, and in the rhythm of local speech. Music and storytelling continue to thrive here, not as performances for visitors, but as living traditions. The weather on Skye defines the experience more than any itinerary. Rain, wind, and sudden light create constant drama, skies turning from deep gray to gold within minutes. Photographers chase those brief moments when sunlight breaks through clouds and the landscape seems to ignite. Travelers learn quickly that flexibility is essential. Plans change with the forecast, and that's part of the island's rhythm. Though Skye attracts thousands each year, it never feels tamed. Roads twist through moors and lochs, sheep often outnumbering cars. The farther you go from Portree, the quieter it becomes. On the west coast, cliffs drop straight into the Atlantic. On the north, seabirds circle above the Old Man of Storr, a towering rock spire that has become Skye's most iconic landmark. For those seeking comfort, local guest houses and small inns offer warmth and hospitality even in rough weather. For those seeking solitude, Skye offers something rarer, a sense of vastness and belonging at once. The island is both harsh and magnetic, demanding and generous. Standing on a windswept ridge above the Quirang or beside the fairy pools at dusk, you understand why Skye has been called the edge of imagination. It's a place where land, sea, and sky seem constantly in conversation, where beauty isn't gentle, but wild, weathered, and alive. Off Scotland's northwest coast lies a chain of islands that feels almost beyond time, the Outer Hebrides, also known as the Western Isles. Stretching for more than 200 kilometers, they form a thin arc of land between the Atlantic Ocean and the Minch. Few places in Europe feel as remote or as defined by nature. Here, life bends to the rhythm of the sea and the wind. The main islands, Lewis, Harris, North Uist, Benbecula, South Uist, and Barra, are connected by causeways and ferries, forming a line of rugged coasts, white beaches, and moorland. Each has its own character, but they share a common thread: endurance. The weather is harsh, the population small, and yet people have lived here for thousands of years, leaving traces in standing stones, black houses, and Gaelic place names that echo with memory. On Harris, the landscape is among the most striking in Scotland. The west coast opens into sweeping beaches like Luscantire, where white sand meets turquoise water so clear it could belong to the Caribbean, until the Atlantic wind reminds you exactly where you are. The light shifts constantly, turning sea and sky into mirrors of silver and blue. Even on cloudy days, the view seems painted with motion. Inland, the terrain changes to dark rock and peat bog, dotted with lochs and tiny crofts. Here, the tradition of crofting, small-scale farming on shared land, remains alive. Crofters raise hardy sheep and grow enough to sustain themselves and their communities, keeping alive a system that once defined rural Scotland. Stone walls divide the land, and the smell of peat smoke drifts from chimneys on cool evenings. Harris is also the birthplace of Harris tweed, one of Scotland's most famous exports. Still woven by hand in the homes of local weavers, each piece must meet strict standards to carry the Harris tweed orb mark. Proof that it was made entirely in the Outer Hebrides from pure virgin wool. Visiting a weaver's shed, you hear the steady rhythm of the loom. See patterns inspired by the island's colors, moss green, storm gray, ocean blue, and understand how landscape and craft are inseparable here. Further north, the island of Lewis carries deeper echoes of history. The Callanish stones, a ring of ancient monoliths older than Stonehenge, stand on a windswept rise overlooking Loch Roag. Archaeologists still debate their purpose, temple, calendar, or ritual site, but their presence speaks of people who once watched the same changing skies. Nearby, the Giranon Black House village preserves traditional stone dwellings that sheltered island families for generations. Their low walls and thatched roofs were built to resist relentless storms, a design born of necessity and wisdom. Across the islands, the Gaelic language still lives, spoken in homes, schools, and churches. Street signs appear in both English and Gaelic. Radio stations broadcast in the native tongue. This linguistic continuity gives the islands their cultural depth, a reminder that remoteness has preserved, not erased, identity. Many songs and poems from the Hebrides celebrate the land's quiet strength, its mix of hardship and grace. The isolation that once limited life here has also protected it. The Outer Hebrides are home to some of the cleanest beaches and clearest waters in Europe. Wildlife thrives, seals rest on rocky outcrops, otters slip through kelp, and seabirds nest by the thousands along cliffs. On Barra, planes land directly on the sand, the only beach runway in the world used for scheduled flights, timed by the tide. Traveling through these islands, visitors quickly adjust to their pace. Days stretch long, conversations last, silence carries meaning. There's a sense that everything moves at the speed of the wind, unpredictable, but always real. Nights bring stars undimmed by city lights, and on rare occasions the green shimmer of the aurora borealis reaches this far south, painting the sky above the Atlantic. The Outer Hebrides are not a postcard of simplicity. They are a living frontier where people coexist with elements that still command respect. Wind, sea, and silence aren't obstacles here. They are the fabric of life. To stand on Luscantire Beach at dusk, the sand cold beneath your feet, and the surf rolling endlessly in, is to understand what endurance means: quiet, constant, and profoundly beautiful. North of the Scottish mainland, across the narrow Pentland Firth, lies the Orkney Archipelago, a cluster of around 70 islands shaped by wind, sea, and time. To reach them is to cross not just a stretch of water, but a threshold in history. Orkney feels both ancient and alive, its landscape layered with stories that began thousands of years before Scotland itself was named. The islands are low and open, carved by Atlantic winds that never stop moving. Their green fields and stone-built villages sit close to the sea, framed by cliffs where seabirds nest in thousands. It is a world of clear air, restless skies, and quiet resilience. For archaeologists, Orkney is one of the richest sites in Europe. A place where prehistory remains visible, not hidden beneath soil but standing in plain sight. On the mainland, the largest island, lies the heart of Neolithic Orkney, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Within a few kilometers stand 4 monuments that together tell the story of early human settlement in the North Atlantic. The most famous is Skara Brae, a perfectly preserved Stone Age village uncovered by a storm in 1850. Built more than 5,000 years ago, its stone houses still display hearths, beds, and shelves. The everyday architecture of a people who lived long before written records. Walking among them, you feel an uncanny closeness to their world. The marks of their hands still visible on the stones. The layout is familiar as a modern home. Nearby rises the Ring of Brodgar, a vast circle of standing stones set on a narrow strip of land between 2 lochs. Its origin remains a mystery. Temple, calendar, or gathering place. But its scale is extraordinary. 36 stones still standing, some nearly 5 meters tall. At dawn or dusk, their silhouettes cut against the horizon, and the wind seems to hum through the gaps between them. A short distance away, the stones of Stennis and the chambered tomb of Maeshau complete the prehistoric ensemble. Maeshau's entrance aligns with the setting sun at the winter solstice, and Viking runes carved into its walls centuries later show how layers of history overlap here. Neolithic builders, Norse raiders, modern visitors, all drawn to the same enduring stones. That Norse connection runs deep in Orkney's identity. For over 600 years, these islands were part of the Kingdom of Norway. And even today, their place names, surnames, and traditions carry echoes of the Viking era. Towns like Kirkwall, the archipelago's capital, blend Scottish and Norse heritage effortlessly. The St. Magnus Cathedral, built in the 12th century of red and yellow sandstone, stands as both a spiritual and historical center. Inside, light filters through narrow stained glass windows onto smooth stone pillars. While outside, the harbor hums with ferries, fishing boats, and seabirds. Life in Orkney today reflects the same mix of old and new. Farming and fishing remain vital. But renewable energy projects and digital industries have taken root, proving that isolation doesn't mean stagnation. Locals greet each other by name. Visitors are welcomed but never hurried. Roads wind through open moor and along sea cliffs, where puffins and guillemots nest in spring, and the calls of seabirds carry for miles. For travelers, the appeal of Orkney lies in its scale and intimacy. You can drive from one end of the mainland to the other in less than an hour. Yet every corner feels different. A ruin, a church, a headland where seals lift their heads to watch you pass. The ferry crossings between islands are short, but each journey feels like a new discovery. Standing at the ring of Brodgur as the wind sweeps through the heather, you realize how little the essentials have changed. People still live by the sea, still read the weather by the clouds, still feel awe before the stones their ancestors raised. Far to the north of mainland Scotland, where the North Sea meets the Atlantic, lie the Shetland Islands, Scotland's last outpost before Norway. On a clear day, the distance to Bergen is shorter than the drive to Edinburgh. That geography defines everything here. Shetland is Scottish by map, but its soul leans toward the Norse world. The archipelago is made up of more than 100 islands, though only 15 are inhabited. The largest mainland forms the center of life, with Lerwick, the capital, sitting around a sheltered harbor. Ferries connect the scattered communities, and small plains link Shetland to the rest of the country. But when the wind rises and the sea turns rough, the islands remind you how far from the mainland they truly are. The landscape is raw and elemental. Treeless hills roll toward cliffs where the ocean breaks in white foam. Sheep graze close to the edge, seemingly immune to the gusts. In summer, wildflowers spread across the moors. In winter, storms batter the coast for days. The light can shift from silver to gold, to deep gray within minutes. To live here means to accept the weather as a constant companion. Shetland's wildlife is among the richest in Britain. The cliffs of Knoss and Sumburgh Head teem with puffins, guillemots, and gannets. On calm days, seals bask on the rocks, and otters slip silently through kelp-filled bays. Offshore pods of orcas and minke whales patrol the deep channels. Birdwatchers, photographers, and nature lovers come from around the world, drawn by the abundance and accessibility of life in these waters. But Shetland is more than wilderness. It's a living community shaped by centuries of resilience. The Norse ruled here for over 600 years, leaving behind not just place names, but a mindset. The Shetlanders' humor, practicality, and independence echo Scandinavian roots. Many islanders still refer to their ancestors as the Vikings, and in winter, that spirit burns brightest during Up Helliah, the island's most famous festival. Every January, in Lerwick, hundreds of men dressed as Vikings march through the streets carrying flaming torches. They surround a full-sized wooden longship, built specially for the event, and set it ablaze while crowds cheer. The fire reflects on the harbor water, the air thick with smoke and song. It's a modern creation, born in the 19th century, but it captures something ancient. The pride of a community that refuses to let distance dull its identity. Beyond the spectacle, daily life here runs at a slower, steadier rhythm. Fishing and aquaculture sustain the economy, while renewable energy and digital innovation are reshaping its future. Many young islanders study on the mainland and return, drawn by the close-knit society and sense of belonging. Cafes and craft shops in Lerwick mix with traditional knitwear businesses, producing the world-famous Shetland wool. Known for its softness and intricate patterns, the designs, stars, crosses, waves are passed down through generations, inspired by the sea and sky that surround them. Driving through Shetland, you're never far from the coast. Narrow roads wind past crofts and lochs, leading to headlands where the only sounds are wind and surf. On clear summer nights, the sun barely sets. Twilight stretches into dawn. In winter, darkness brings its own reward, a chance to see the northern lights. Green ribbons flickering above the horizon, reflected in quiet inlets. Visitors often come expecting isolation, and find instead a rare kind of connection between past and present, nature and community. Shetland feels self-contained but never closed. It looks outward, shaped by centuries of seafaring and exchange, yet remains unmistakably its own. To stand on a cliff at Eshenes, where black volcanic rock meets the open Atlantic, is to sense what Shetland truly is. The edge of Scotland, yes, but also the meeting point of worlds, where Norse fire and Scottish stone share the same wind, and where every horizon leads to another story. In the heart of Scotland, where the Highlands meet the lowlands, stands Stirling. A city built on rock and legend. It has been called the key to Scotland for centuries, a place whose control once meant control of the entire nation. Few cities condense so much of Scotland's story into such a small space. The old town rises around Stirling Castle, perched high on a volcanic crag above the River Forth. From its walls, the view stretches across the valley to distant hills, the same vantage point that once let kings and soldiers watch the movements of friend and foe alike. The castle is more than a fortress. It's a chronicle carved in stone. Within its courtyards, royal coronations, sieges, and political intrigues shaped Scotland's destiny. The Great Hall, with its golden plaster walls, was built by James IV as a symbol of power and unity, and later restored to its original brilliance. Walking through it today, you can still sense the echoes of armor and ceremony. Below the castle lies the battlefield of Bannockburn, where in 1314, Robert the Bruce led a smaller Scottish force to victory against the English army of Edward II. The win secured Scotland's independence for a generation and turned the name Bannockburn into a national touchstone. The site today is marked by a visitor center and a bronze statue of Bruce astride his warhorse, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The story told here isn't just of warfare, but of endurance, of a country learning to define itself against overwhelming odds. A few kilometers away, the Wallace Monument rises from Abbey Craig, its Gothic tower visible for miles around. It honors William Wallace, the 13th century freedom fighter whose leadership at the Battle of Stirling Bridge turned him into a symbol of defiance. Climbing its spiral staircase, visitors pass through exhibits on Wallace's life and legend, before emerging onto a viewing platform that looks out over the same landscape where he once fought. The wind at the top is sharp, the panorama wide, a reminder that history here is not distant but present and tangible. Yet Stirling is not a museum. Beyond the medieval streets and stone arches, it's a lively modern city of students, artists, and commuters. The University of Stirling, set among parkland and a loch fringed with trees, gives the town a youthful pulse. Cafes and pubs fill the narrow lanes of the old town, and markets bring local produce and crafts to the city center. There's a rhythm of daily life that moves easily between past and present, a community grounded in history, but not confined by it. The geography that once made Stirling a strategic stronghold still shapes it today. The River Forth curves around the city like a natural moat, and the surrounding plain opens toward both the Highlands to the north and the fertile farmland of the lowlands to the south. This meeting point of landscapes gives Stirling a sense of balance, both a gateway and a crossroads. Visitors often describe Stirling as a microcosm of Scotland itself. Within a short walk, you can move from royal halls to quiet cobbled lanes, from ancient monuments to modern galleries. The air carries both the weight of centuries and the hum of ordinary life. School bells, laughter, the sound of the wind pushing through narrow closes. At sunset, when light falls over the castle and the surrounding hills, the city seems to breathe history. The stone turns warm, the river reflects gold, and the distant outline of the Wallace Monument catches the last of the glow. At the meeting point of river and sea, Inverness stands as the natural gateway to the Highlands, a city where history and modern life flow side by side, much like the River Ness that cuts through its heart. Its name, meaning mouth of the Ness, perfectly captures its role as a crossroads between Scotland's bustling south and the wild, untamed north. Between centuries of heritage and the energy of progress, the city itself may seem compact, but its importance far outweighs its size. As the administrative and cultural capital of the Highlands, Inverness serves as a vital hub for commerce, tourism, and transport. From here, roads and railways fan outward into some of the most remote landscapes in Britain. The local economy thrives on this position, built on renewable energy, healthcare, distilleries, and an ever-growing tourism sector that feeds on visitors seeking both the myth of Loch Ness and the majesty of the surrounding glens. Yet despite its growth, Inverness has managed to retain the warmth and community spirit of a Highland town. At its center stands Inverness Castle, perched above the river on a red sandstone hill. The current structure, dating from the 19th century, occupies a site that has witnessed fortresses and battles since medieval times. Though under restoration today, the castle remains a proud symbol of the city, a lookout over both the old and the new. Nearby, the Inverness Museum and Art Gallery tells the story of the region's clans, landscapes, and traditions, connecting modern visitors to the deep roots of Highland culture. The River Ness, calm and reflective, shapes both the geography and the mood of the city. Its banks are lined with tree-shaded paths, Victorian churches, and cafes where locals gather as the sun sets late into the northern evenings. Bridges cross in gentle arcs, linking neighborhoods that blend stone heritage with contemporary life. Just beyond the city center lie the Ness Islands, small wooded islets connected by footbridges, a favorite escape for joggers, families, and daydreamers seeking a quiet moment within nature. Culturally, Inverness is more than a stopover. It's a pulse point of Highland identity. Each summer, the Inverness Highland Games brings together athletes, dancers, and pipers in a celebration of tradition that feels both ancient and alive. Caber tosses echo against the hills, while the skirl of bagpipes fills the air. It's not a spectacle for tourists alone. For locals, it is a proud reminder of who they are and where they come from. The city also plays host to music festivals and sealids, lively community gatherings that bridge generations through rhythm and laughter. Modern Inverness has embraced innovation without surrendering its soul. Sleek hotels and eco-friendly developments rise alongside stone churches and historic lanes. Tech companies and renewable energy firms share space with whiskey distilleries and local markets. It is a balance, not between old and new as opposites, but as partners in defining the region's future. Walking through the Victorian market, you can buy handcrafted goods made by local artisans. Step outside, and you'll find modern design studios and digital startups shaping Scotland's tomorrow. Beyond the city, the Highlands begin almost immediately, vast, rolling, and elemental. In minutes, roads lead to Culloden Moor, where the final battle of the Jacobite uprising took place in 1746, or to Loch Ness, whose legend ripples across the world. The proximity of wilderness is what gives Inverness its unique rhythm. Mornings filled with city bustle, evenings touched by the silence of mountains. Inverness is not a city trying to escape its past. It grows from it. Every corner carries a quiet awareness of history, from Gaelic place names to the stories told over a pint by the river. Yet it is also forward-looking, powered by education, technology, and sustainability. Here, Scotland's contrasts, wild and civilized, ancient and modern, poetic and practical, merge into one living landscape. In the center of the Highlands, stretching across 5 ancient valleys and crowned by snow-dusted peaks, lies the Cairngorms National Park, the largest protected landscape in the United Kingdom, and in many ways, the wild heart of Scotland. Covering more than 4,500 square kilometers, it's a world of granite mountains, whispering pine forests, and winds that carry the scent of heather and frost. Here, nature feels raw and unfiltered, yet deeply intertwined with human life. The Cairngorms are often called Scotland's Arctic heart for good reason. The upper plateaus of these mountains share more in common with the tundra of northern Scandinavia than with the lowlands below. In winter, snow blankets the peaks for months, transforming them into a haven for skiers and mountaineers. The Cairngorm summit, which gives the range its name, rises over 1,200 meters, while neighboring giants like Ben Macdui and Breriach pierce the clouds. On a clear day, you can look out across endless ridges and frozen lochs, a landscape both severe and breathtaking. Despite its harshness, the park shelters one of the most diverse ecosystems in the British Isles. Ancient Caledonian pine forests, once spread across much of Scotland, survive here, home to red squirrels, wildcats, and capercaillie, one of Europe's rarest woodland birds. Higher up, the land opens into heathermoor and alpine tundra, where reindeer graze, reintroduced from Norway in the 1950s. Red deer move silently through the mist, golden eagles soar above the corries, and in winter, the elusive mountain hare turns pure white against the snow. But the Cairngorms are not a wilderness untouched by humans. They are a landscape shaped by a long, delicate relationship between people and place. For centuries, small communities survived here through farming, forestry, and hunting. Today, conservation and tourism have taken their place, but the balance remains fragile. Local initiatives work to restore native forests, rewild damaged peatlands, and protect endangered species, while ensuring that those who live here can thrive. The park's villages, Aviemore, Ballater, Braemar, Grantown-on-Spey, each tell a story of adaptation. Once reliant on timber or estates, they now welcome hikers, cyclists, and winter sports enthusiasts who come seeking the clarity of the Highlands. Aviemore, in particular, has become the beating heart of the park's outdoor culture. In summer, it's alive with hikers heading toward the Larig Gru Pass, one of the most dramatic mountain routes in the country. In winter, ski lifts hum on Cairngorm's slopes, offering one of the few alpine-style experiences in the UK. Yet even here, nature sets the terms. The weather shifts in minutes, winds whip across ridges, and fog can erase entire valleys. It demands respect, and rewards it with moments of silence and light that feel almost sacred. Conservation in the Cairngorms is not just about saving species, it's about preserving connection. Efforts to restore native woodland corridors and reintroduce lost wildlife reflect a growing understanding that humans are part of this system, not outside it. Visitors are encouraged to tread lightly, follow paths, and support local businesses that prioritize sustainability. The Cairngorms Connect project, one of the largest habitat restoration programs in the UK, aims to let natural processes, rivers meandering freely, forests expanding, peatlands breathing again, shape the land's future. For travelers, the Cairngorms offer more than scenery. They offer perspective. You can walk for hours without hearing anything but the wind and the call of birds, or stand at the edge of Loch Morlich, its waters mirroring snow peaks above a pine-fringed shore. In that stillness, you feel what many describe as the true spirit of Scotland, resilient, pure, and enduring. Barely an hour's drive from Glasgow, Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park marks the threshold where Scotland's urban life gives way to its wild soul. It's the first national park established in Scotland, and to many travelers, it feels like a doorway. One step you're among highways and neighborhoods, the next you're standing before a vast expanse of water ringed by forested hills. The transition is so sudden, so complete, it almost feels like crossing into another world. Loch Lomond, stretching over 36 kilometers, is the largest freshwater lake in Britain by surface area. Its waters reflect the moods of the Highlands, still and glassy one morning, rough and silver the next. Small islands dot the loch, their green crowns mirrored perfectly on calm days. Boat rides glide between them, tracing routes that once carried traders, fishermen, and clan families. From the village of Balloch, visitors set out on cruises that reveal the loch's immense scale. From the low, wooded shores of the south to the towering mountains that rise in the north, where Ben Lomond stands watch at 974 meters. This contrast defines the park. The gentle landscapes of the Trossachs, often called the Highlands in miniature, give travelers an accessible taste of Scotland's wildness. Rolling hills, oak woods, and mirrored lochs make this region a favorite for walkers and photographers. Loch Katrine, long celebrated for its beauty, inspired poets and painters of the Romantic era, even serving as the setting for Sir Walter Scott's The Lady of the Lake. Today, visitors can still board the century-old steamship Sir Walter Scott and follow the same serene route through mountain shadows and reflected clouds. For those coming from Glasgow or Stirling, the park's accessibility makes it one of Scotland's most popular escapes. Families picnic on grassy shores. Cyclists follow trails through pine forests, and hikers climb to viewpoints like Connick Hill. Where the line of islands across the loch marks the boundary between the lowlands and the highlands, a geological fault line visible to the naked eye. It's a moment where geography and symbolism merge. Below, the softer south. Above, the rugged north. Yet Loch Lomond and the Trossachs are not just playgrounds for visitors, they are living landscapes that demand care. As tourism grew, so did the need to protect fragile ecosystems. The National Park Authority works closely with local communities to balance conservation and recreation. Projects aim to restore native woodlands, improve water quality, and maintain sustainable access to popular trails. Seasonal rangers patrol the loch, ensuring that the beauty people come to admire is not quietly eroded by overuse. Wildlife thrives under this careful stewardship. Red deer graze in the glens, otters slip through reed beds, and ospreys return each spring to fish in the loch's depths. The surrounding forests echo with the calls of woodland birds, while rare orchids and mosses flourish in shaded gullies. For all its proximity to major cities, this is a landscape that feels remote. A reminder that nature doesn't always require distance, only respect. The human stories of the region run deep. Villages like Luss, with its slate cottages and flowered lanes, have stood here for centuries, shaped by fishing, farming, and faith. Local inns serve travelers as they have for generations, their walls lined with maps and photographs that tell of long walks and long histories. Each community within the park, from Aberfoyle to Callander, balances tradition with the flow of modern tourism, offering both rest and insight into rural Scottish life. Evening brings a different rhythm. As light fades, the loch becomes a mirror of gold and violet, the hills falling into soft shadow. Boats return to harbor, and the air cools with the scent of pine and water. It's in these quiet hours that Loch Lomond shows its true magic, not in grandeur, but in stillness. To visit Loch Lomond and the Trossachs is to stand between two worlds. The pulse of city life behind you and the timeless calm of nature ahead. It captures what Scotland does best. Blending accessibility with awe, familiarity with wilderness. Whether you arrive for an afternoon or stay for a week, you leave with the same feeling. That even this close to civilization, the wild still has room to breathe. Off Scotland's western coast, beyond the shifting waters of the Inner Hebrides, lie two islands bound by beauty and spirit, Mull and Iona. Though close in distance, they feel like two distinct worlds. Mull, wild and expansive. Iona, small and serene. Together they embody Scotland's quieter side, where cliffs meet calm seas, and centuries of history seem to breathe through the wind. The Isle of Mull is the larger of the two, a landscape carved by mountains, lochs, and winding single-track roads. It's known for its drama, from the towering cliffs of Greeboon to the pastel-colored harbor of Tobermory, the island's main village. Tobermory's waterfront, with its line of brightly painted houses, feels almost like a postcard, lively yet intimate. Filled with cafes, small shops, and fishing boats bobbing in the harbor. Beyond the town, the island opens into vast stretches of untouched nature, where red deer roam freely, and golden eagles glide high above the moors. Mull is one of the best places in Britain to see wildlife. Otters play in coastal shallows, puffins nest on nearby staffa, and dolphins follow the ferries that cross from Oban. But Mull is also a place of stillness, a land that moves at its own rhythm. Roads twist through valleys that seem to belong to another age, and in every direction, the sea is visible. shaping the island's life and spirit. Small crofting communities dot the coastline, sustained by a mix of fishing, farming, and tourism. For locals, connection to the land is not an idea, it's a way of life. Handed down through generations who have learned to live with the wind and tides rather than against them. Just off Mull's western edge, a short ferry ride across turquoise water leads to Iona, an island only 3 miles long, but immeasurably rich in meaning. To many, Iona is not simply a destination, it is a pilgrimage. Over 1,400 years ago, St. Columba arrived here from Ireland, founding a monastery that became one of the most influential centers of early Christianity in Europe. From this small, windswept island, missionaries carried faith, art, and learning across Scotland and beyond. At the heart of Iona stands Iona Abbey, a modest yet deeply moving structure of gray stone and simple arches. Its quiet interior, filled with soft light and the sound of distant waves, feels timeless. Pilgrims still come from around the world to walk the same worn paths, seeking reflection rather than spectacle. Outside, a small graveyard known as Reilig O'Drain is said to hold the remains of ancient kings, including by legend, some from early Scottish and Norse dynasties. Yet on Iona, history never overshadows the present. Instead, it seems to live gently alongside it. What defines Iona more than anything is its simplicity. There are no grand hotels or loud distractions, only guest houses, a few local shops, and an unbroken horizon. The pace slows immediately upon arrival. You hear the gulls, feel the wind, and watch the light shift across the sea. On clear days, the water turns a luminous blue that rivals the Mediterranean, while evenings bring a golden calm that seems to pause time itself. Wildlife thrives even in this peaceful setting. Seals bask on nearby rocks, and in the surrounding waters, dolphins and porpoises often break the surface. The skies above Mull and Iona are the domain of white-tailed eagles, Britain's largest bird of prey, a symbol of the wild freedom that still defines this part of the Hebrides. Conservation efforts have helped them return after centuries of absence, and spotting one soaring above the sound of Iona feels like witnessing the land reclaiming its balance. Together, Mull and Iona offer a kind of dual experience. Mull gives you scale, movement, and diversity. Iona offers stillness, reflection, and peace. Many travelers come for a day, but leave feeling they visited something far more than a landscape. Something closer to the essence of what Scotland means. In the quiet of Iona Abbey, with the Atlantic wind rustling the grass outside, it's easy to understand why this place has drawn seekers for over a millennium. Here, spirituality isn't confined to walls or rituals. It's in the open sky, the endless sea, and the rhythm of a land that asks only that you listen. On Scotland's northeastern edge, where the land meets the restless North Sea, stands Aberdeen, a city built of granite, industry, and endurance. Known as the Granite City, its buildings shimmer silver under sunlight and darken to steel gray when rain drifts in from the coast. It is a place defined by both its resilience and its constant reinvention. A city that has faced the waves and the winds for centuries and learned how to turn challenge into strength. Aberdeen's story begins long before oil and engineering. For generations, it was a port city. Its harbor filled with fishing boats and trading vessels, that connected Scotland to the wider North Sea world. Even today, the smell of salt and diesel lingers around the docks, where supply ships and trawlers come and go at all hours. The city's granite heart was built in the 18th and 19th centuries, using stone from nearby quarries that gave rise to one of the most distinctive skylines in Britain. Landmarks like Marischal College, with its Gothic spires of polished grey, and Union Street, lined with stately facades, tell of a time when Aberdeen's craftsmanship was as solid as the rock beneath it. In the 1970s, the discovery of North Sea oil transformed Aberdeen from a quiet port into one of Europe's energy capitals. Offshore rigs, engineering firms, and global corporations brought prosperity, and with it, a new skyline of glass offices and hotels. The harbor became a hub for supply vessels, and the once small airport began sending workers to platforms far out at sea. This energy boom reshaped not only the economy, but also the identity of the city. Aberdeen became a symbol of modern Scotland's ambition, industrious, outward-looking, and unafraid of the elements. Yet today, the region stands at a turning point. As the world shifts toward renewable energy, Aberdeen is once again redefining itself. Offshore wind farms now rise where oil rigs once dominated the horizon, and the city has become a leader in energy transition technologies. From hydrogen power projects to marine research, the Northeast is proving that progress and sustainability can share the same stage. The balance between energy and environment, between industry and the natural world, is now part of Aberdeen's evolving story. Beyond the city, the Northeast coast offers a stark, captivating beauty. Long stretches of sand give way to rocky headlands, sea caves, and weather-beaten cliffs. Small fishing villages cling to the shoreline. Places like Pennant, Crovey, and Gardenstown, where rows of cottages face the sea, their doors painted bright against the gray stone. Life here has always depended on the water, and though the fishing fleets are smaller now, the rhythm of tide and trade remains. Further south lies Dunnottar Castle, perched dramatically on a headland near Stonehaven, once a stronghold of Scottish kings and rebels. Its ruins now watch over the sea, battered by wind and history alike. Standing there, surrounded by gulls and crashing waves, you feel the raw connection between landscape and legend that defines this coast. Inland, the countryside softens into rolling farmland, dotted with Aberdeenshire's Castle Trail. More than 260 castles in one region, from fairy tale turrets at Craigievar to the stately power of Fyvie. Each tells a chapter of Scotland's long story of loyalty, ambition, and artistry. The climate here is brisk and bracing. Cold winds sweep in from the North Sea, and even in summer, the air carries a sharpness that clears the mind. Yet the light, especially on clear days, can be extraordinary. Silver waves under pale skies, green fields glowing against gray stone, and the city itself gleaming like polished metal. It's a beauty that doesn't beg to be noticed. It insists on being felt. Aberdeen's people reflect their surroundings. Practical, grounded, and quietly proud. There's warmth behind the granite, a community that has weathered boom and bust, storm and calm. You'll find it in the friendly chatter at a harbor cafe, in the laughter echoing from pubs on Union Street, and in the local markets filled with fresh fish, baked goods, and North Sea stories. In many ways, Aberdeen and the Northeast Coast capture Scotland in microcosm, a blend of past and future, resilience and reinvention. The granite that built the city still glitters, but now it shares space with glass towers reflecting wind turbines on the horizon. Where Scotland softens into England, the land opens into a gentle sweep of valleys, rivers, and rounded hills. This is the Borders, a region shaped by centuries of conflict, faith, and quiet endurance. It's a place where stone abbeys rise from green fields, where sheep graze beneath ruined arches, and where every curve of the landscape carries echoes of an older Scotland. One that once stood watch against its southern neighbor, and now rests in peaceful rhythm. The Scottish borders have always been a frontier, a meeting place and a dividing line. For hundreds of years, this was a battleground between two nations. Fortified towers dotted the hills, and reivers, the infamous border raiders, lived by their own harsh code, stealing cattle and settling feuds across both sides of the line. But today, the region tells a gentler story. The towers still stand, weathered and proud, but their surroundings are calm: meadows, quiet rivers, and winding country lanes that invite you to slow down and listen to the land. At the heart of the Borders are its abbeys, magnificent ruins that speak of both spiritual devotion and turbulent history. Melrose Abbey, founded by Cistercian monks in the 12th century, remains one of Scotland's most hauntingly beautiful sights. Its intricate stone carvings, pointed arches, and delicate tracery still command awe, even in ruin. Beneath its grounds, legend says, lies the buried heart of Robert the Bruce, a symbol of loyalty and courage that forever ties this peaceful place to Scotland's national story. Further along the River Tweed stands Dryburgh Abbey, tucked within a quiet bend of woodland and water. Its soft red sandstone walls glow warmly in the afternoon light, surrounded by trees that seem to muffle the modern world. Here rests Sir Walter Scott, the great romantic chronicler of Scottish history, whose words brought the Borders and their legends to life for generations. Nearby, Jedburgh Abbey rises in grand Gothic lines, its towering nave open to the sky. Built by Augustinian monks, it once stood as both a sanctuary and a statement of power, its fortunes rising and falling with the shifting tides of war. Beyond the abbeys, the landscape tells its own quiet tale. The River Tweed winds through fertile farmland, feeding rolling pastures and small villages where time seems to move just a little slower. Farmers work fields that have been tended for centuries, producing wool, grain, and livestock that remain the backbone of the region's rural life. The rhythm of this land is steady, dependable, a reminder that peace, once hard won, can endure in the simple act of living well. In towns like Kelso, Peebles, and Selkirk, stone bridges and market squares give a sense of rootedness. Local festivals celebrate everything from traditional music to horse riding. None more famous than the common ridings, centuries-old ceremonies where riders gallop across the countryside, retracing the old town boundaries in a proud display of heritage and unity. These traditions, passed down through generations, keep the border spirit alive, proud but kind, independent yet close-knit. The Borders' beauty isn't dramatic in the way of the Highlands or the Islands. It's measured and serene, a landscape of long horizons and soft colors. Hills roll into one another, dotted with heather and gorse. The air smells of grass, rain, and earth. In autumn, mist gathers over the Tweed Valley, and in spring, lambs scatter across the fields. It's a countryside that rewards attention, the quiet kind of beauty that doesn't shout but stays with you. In this calm setting, it's easy to forget that these lands once burned with conflict. The abbeys were destroyed and rebuilt, castles rose and fell, loyalties shifted like the wind. Yet what remains today is resilience, the same kind that defines much of Scotland's soul. The borders stand as a bridge between past and present, between two nations and two tempos of life. Once a frontier of division, it has become a landscape of connection, of faith, community, and gentle continuity. Along the gentle bends of the River Spey, in the heart of northeastern Scotland, lies Speyside, a region where whiskey isn't just made, it's lived. The air itself carries its signature aroma, a blend of malt, oak, and history. Here, distilleries rise from the mist like small temples to craft and patience, each with its own character, its own faithful following, and its own story of how time, water, and skill become something far greater than the sum of their parts. Speyside is the soul of Scotland's whiskey world. More than half of the country's distilleries are found here. Over 50 names that span centuries of tradition and innovation: Glenfiddich, the Macallan, Balvenie, Aberlour, Glenlivet. These aren't just brands, but symbols of a culture that values craftsmanship over haste and heritage over trend. Each sits nestled in a landscape of rolling hills, clear streams, and fertile valleys, where the conditions are perfectly tuned for distilling the water of life. Uisce Beatha, as it's called in Gaelic. The River Spey gives the region its name and its heartbeat. Its waters, drawn from granite mountains and filtered through layers of peat and soil, are unusually pure and rich in minerals. This water becomes the foundation of Speyside's whiskey, soft yet strong, just like the landscape it flows through. Around it, fields of barley sway in the wind, golden in summer, harvested to provide the grain that forms whiskey's backbone. Even the air here plays its part, carrying a crispness that aids the slow aging process. The making of whiskey is part science, part poetry. It begins with malting, soaking barley in water until it germinates, releasing the enzymes needed to convert starch into sugar. The grain is then dried, sometimes with peat smoke, giving subtle flavor variations that define a distillery's signature. The next step, mashing, mixes the malted barley with hot water to extract sweet liquid called wort. Then comes fermentation, where yeast transforms that sweetness into alcohol. And the alchemy truly begins. But the magic of Speyside lies in distillation, heating the liquid in copper stills so that alcohol vapors rise, cool, and condense into a spirit that's smooth, rich, and layered. The shape and size of these stills, often guarded secrets, shape the spirit's character. After distillation, the whiskey is left to rest, and this is where patience reigns supreme. For years, sometimes decades, it matures in oak casks, often reused from sherry or bourbon. The wood breathes, expands, and contracts with the seasons, infusing the whiskey with color and complexity. The result is a range of flavors as diverse as the land itself, from the honeyed sweetness of Glenfiddich to the full-bodied richness of the Macallan. Speyside whiskies are often known for their elegance and approachability. Notes of apple, vanilla, and heather, rather than the heavy smoke found elsewhere in Scotland. Yet behind each sip is a lineage that runs deep. Generations of coopers, maltsters, and blenders who pass their knowledge down quietly. like family secrets. Visiting Speyside is as much a cultural pilgrimage as a sensory one. The Malt Whiskey Trail, winding through the region, links some of Scotland's most storied distilleries. Visitors can follow it from Dufftown, often called the whiskey capital of the world, to the banks of the Spey, where warehouses line the water like guardians of time. The tours are intimate, often guided by locals who've spent their lives in the trade. They speak not just of production, but of pride, of how whiskey binds community and landscape together. Beyond the barrels, Speyside's beauty extends in every direction. Quiet roads lined with birch trees, salmon leaping in the Spey, stone villages where pubs glow with amber light, and conversation flows easily. The people here talk about whiskey the way others might speak of art, with affection and respect. It's part of their rhythm, their history, their livelihood. In the end, whiskey from Speyside is more than a drink. It's a story in a glass, distilled from land, water, and time. Each drop holds a sense of place. The granite hills, the highland air, the patience of those who wait years for perfection. To travel through Speyside is to witness Scotland's craft at its most refined, where tradition isn't preserved behind glass, but poured generously into the hands of those who come to understand that what they're tasting is not just whiskey, but a living heritage, smooth, strong, and unmistakably Scottish. On the eastern coast of Fife, where the North Sea rolls against a rugged shoreline, lies St. Andrews, a place where history, intellect, and sport meet in perfect balance. It's a small town with a global name, known to scholars as the home of Scotland's oldest university, to golfers as the birthplace of their game, and to travelers as one of the country's most charming coastal retreats. The town unfolds between sea and sky. St. Andrews Bay stretches wide and cold, its waves breaking against long beaches of pale sand. Above them rise stone buildings and spires, reminders of a past that shaped not only Scotland, but the wider world. Walking through the old streets, you move between eras. Medieval ruins, Georgian houses, and modern cafes filled with students. The rhythm here is slower, thoughtful, and full of character. At its heart stands the University of St. Andrews, founded in 1413, making it the third oldest university in the English-speaking world. Its courtyards and cloisters echo with more than 6 centuries of debate and discovery. From early philosophers and theologians to scientists and statesmen, generations have passed through its halls, giving the town a steady pulse of youth and curiosity. Even today, the university defines St. Andrews. 1/3 of its population are students, giving life to its pubs, bookshops, and quiet corners overlooking the sea. Classes end, and students head toward West Sands Beach, where the wind is sharp and the horizon endless. The sight of runners along this stretch of sand has become iconic. Immortalized in the film Chariots of Fire. Yet for locals, it's simply part of daily life. A place for reflection, for watching the tide, for feeling the pull of the sea that has shaped this town's story. A short walk from the university stands the haunting beauty of St. Andrew's Cathedral. Once the largest church in Scotland, it now survives as a ruin, arches open to the sky, gravestones softened by salt air. Nearby, St. Rule's Tower offers a sweeping view across the coast. The same perspective pilgrims once saw centuries ago. History feels tangible here, not distant. The stones are weathered but alive with memory. And then there's golf, the heartbeat of another kind of pilgrimage. St. Andrews is often called the home of golf, a title earned over more than 600 years of play. The old course, with its wide fairways and deep bunkers, is revered worldwide. Every detail, from the famous Swilcan Bridge to the road hole, carries stories of triumph and heartbreak. Even those who don't play can feel the reverence in the air. Golf here isn't luxury or leisure, it's heritage, born from the dunes and shaped by the wind. Yet St. Andrews is far from a museum. It's a living community. Fishermen, professors, and shopkeepers share the same cobbled streets. On weekends, market stalls fill the square with local produce and crafts. In cafes and pubs, conversations drift easily between academic debate and the results of the latest golf championship. At sunset, locals gather along the cathedral ruins or the castle cliffs, watching the sky turn amber before the sea swallows the light. Beyond its postcard beauty, St. Andrews captures the essence of Scotland's balance between tradition and vitality. It's a place of deep roots and fresh ideas, where ancient walls house modern minds, and where centuries-old fairways still challenge new generations. To visit St. Andrews is to feel how Scotland's past and present coexist in harmony. The solemn stones of the cathedral beside the laughter of students. The whisper of sea wind mingling with the crack of a golf club on the old course. They call it Scotland in miniature. And the Isle of Arran earns that name at every turn. Just an hour's ferry ride from the mainland, this small island captures the full spirit of the nation in one sweep of land and sea. Rugged mountains in the north, rolling farmland in the south, castles on cliffs, and beaches that stretch into quiet coves. For anyone wanting to understand Scotland's geography and character in a single place, Arran is the perfect microcosm, a living summary of its landscapes, history, and heart. The journey begins at Ardrossan, where ferries cross the Firth of Clyde toward Brodick, the island's main port. As you approach, the Goat Fell Range rises ahead. Peaks dusted with snow in winter, glowing gold in summer light. Standing at 874 meters, Goat Fell is Arran's highest point and a favorite for hikers, offering sweeping views over the sea, and on clear days, across to the distant Highlands. The climb isn't difficult, but it captures the thrill of the wild open moorland, granite ridges, and the call of gulls echoing far below. At the base of these mountains lies Brodick Castle, once a seat of the Dukes of Hamilton. Its red sandstone towers overlook a landscape of gardens, ancient oaks, and rhododendrons that burst into color each spring. Inside, rooms filled with portraits and hunting trophies tell stories of Scotland's aristocratic past. Yet step outside, and you're back in nature. Deer graze in the woods, and the smell of salt and pine mixes with the cool island air. Arran's diversity is astonishing for its size. In the north, cliffs and forests dominate. In the south, the land softens into green pastures and villages where white cottages line quiet roads. The contrast mirrors mainland Scotland, the highland edge meeting the gentler lowlands. Along the coast, seals bask on rocks, and if you're lucky, you might spot golden eagles soaring above or even otters slipping into the surf. The island's human rhythm is steady and grounded. Around 5,000 people call Arran home. Spread across villages like Lamlash, Lochranza, and Whiting Bay, life follows the tides and the tourist seasons, with small shops, local craft studios, and cozy inns welcoming visitors year-round. In Lochranza, the northernmost village, stands a 13th century castle, reflected perfectly in the calm loch waters. One of Scotland's most photogenic scenes. Nearby, the Arran distillery produces whiskey that carries the island's clean air and maritime touch in every drop. For many travelers, tasting that whiskey is part of understanding the island itself. Smooth, slightly sweet, and shaped by its environment. The water comes from Loch Nadavi, said to be among the purest in Scotland, while the casks rest under the constant sound of wind and sea. A newer distillery at Lag in the south continues the tradition, focusing on peaty air expressions, proof that even on this small island, variety thrives. Arran's coastline offers as much to explore as its hills. The Coastal Way, a 100-kilometer trail circling the island, leads walkers past beaches, waterfalls, and caves etched by centuries of waves. In summer, cyclists and hikers fill the ferry decks, drawn by the chance to cover both mountains and shores in a single weekend. Each turn offers something different. Red sandstone cliffs at Corrie, long beaches near Blackwater Foot, or views across to the Kintyre Peninsula that seem to float in mist. Despite its accessibility, just a short hop from Glasgow, Arran retains a sense of quiet independence. It has the friendliness of a close-knit community. Yet every landscape feels untamed. Visitors are often struck by how complete it feels. The grandeur of the Highlands, the charm of lowland farms, the touch of sea air, and the taste of whiskey, all condensed into one island you can circle in a day. In the evening, when the ferry pulls away from Brodick and the mountains fade into shadow, Arran leaves a lasting impression. It's not just a scenic detour, but a distilled version of what makes Scotland special, a place where history, nature, and daily life intertwine seamlessly. In Scotland, time doesn't just pass, it transforms the land. Each season redraws the country's map in light, color, and emotion. From the endless glow of midsummer to the stillness of snow-covered glens, the shifting year turns familiar places into something new. To truly know Scotland, you have to see it more than once. In rain and under sun, in bloom and in frost. Spring arrives quietly but with purpose. After long months of gray skies, the land begins to breathe again. In the Highlands, melting snow feeds the burns that race down glens, and the first bluebells appear beneath the birches. Farmers prepare fields, and lambs scatter across green slopes. Castles that looked severe in winter light soften under sudden bursts of color. The air carries a freshness that makes every walk feel like a discovery. It's the season of renewal, of warmth returning, of days that stretch a little longer, of Scotland waking up. Then comes summer, and with it, a kind of magic. The sun lingers late. In June, it barely sets at all in the far north. Golden light brushes over the mountains and lochs, giving everything a quiet shimmer. It's the time for festivals. Edinburgh fills with street performers and music during the Fringe. In smaller towns, Highland games bring pipes, dancing, and friendly competition. Ferries to the islands are full, and the beaches of Harris or the shores of Skye feel almost Mediterranean under a rare spell of blue sky. Even the rain, when it comes, seems gentler, part of the rhythm rather than an interruption. Summer in Scotland isn't about heat, it's about light. Long evenings stretch endlessly, and travelers find themselves walking past midnight. The horizon's still glowing. The air smells of heather and salt, and every landscape feels alive, not just seen, but felt. Autumn follows with its quiet grandeur. The trees along the Trossachs and Perthshire turn into a living tapestry of gold, red, and amber. Mist lingers over lochs in the morning, rising as the sun breaks through, painting reflections that shift by the minute. It's the season for slow travel. Whiskey distilleries hum with warmth, forests crackle with fallen leaves, and the mood turns contemplative. The pace softens. Locals talk of Corrie, the Scottish version of coziness, drawing comfort from firelight, wool, and good company. But perhaps the most striking transformation comes with winter. Scotland in cold months is raw, elemental, and breathtaking. Snow crowns the Cairngorms and Ben Nevis, turning the peaks into vast white cathedrals. The days are short, sometimes barely a flicker of light between dawn and dusk. But the darkness brings its own beauty. Cities like Glasgow and Edinburgh glow with lights and Christmas markets. In the Highlands, silence reigns, roads are empty, and the wind takes over. The isolation is real, but so is the peace. Winter also carries celebration. The Scots greet the turn of the year with Hogmanay, their world-famous New Year's festival, a night of bonfires, fireworks, and the singing of Auld Lang Syne. It's a reminder that even in the coldest time, warmth lives in community. Then, as the year turns once more, light returns. The cycle begins again, and with it, the realization that Scotland's essence lies in this rhythm, between wildness and calm, light and shadow, solitude and gathering. To see Scotland through its seasons is to understand its true character, not fixed, but fluid. It's a land that never stops changing, yet always feels unmistakably itself. The light, the air, the silence all speak in their own language. Dawn rises slowly over the Highlands, light spilling across peaks still touched by mist, lochs catching fire in reflection. It's a quiet moment, but one that carries the full weight of Scotland's story. This is a land shaped by endurance and beauty, by people who've learned to live with the wind, the rain, and the rhythm of the seasons, and to draw strength from them. Across the journey, Scotland reveals itself not as a single image, but as a tapestry woven from opposites, wild yet welcoming, ancient yet alive. The high cliffs of Skye, the cobbled lanes of Edinburgh, the calm waters of Loch Lomond, all share the same undercurrent of resilience. Every valley, every stone, every note of the pipes seems to hold memory. Yet this memory isn't trapped in the past, it breathes in the present. Modern Scotland stands with one foot in heritage and the other in the future. In Glasgow's art galleries and Edinburgh's universities, innovation thrives beside centuries-old walls. Gaelic and Scots voices mix with global ones. Ancient crafts meet new technologies. The country's identity is not fixed. It's a dialogue between what was and what can be. That's what makes it powerful. A nation that carries its history with pride, but not as weight, as guidance. Its people reflect that same duality. In the fishing villages of the Hebrides, in the streets of Aberdeen, in the green fields of the borders, there's a shared sense of belonging to something larger than place. It's found in humor, in hospitality, in the quiet pride of someone describing their home valley. Scotland's strength lies in its balance between solitude and community, the freedom to wander, and the warmth of always being welcomed back. As the camera drifts across the landscape one last time, dawn turning today over the Highlands, or the sun sinking behind the sea at the cliffs of Skye, what remains is a feeling rather than a fact. The wind hums through the heather, waves crash against black rock, and somewhere in the distance a voice or a tune reminds you that this land is never still. Scotland endures, not because it resists change, but because it absorbs it, just as its mountains absorb the clouds, just as its lochs hold reflections without losing their depth. It's a place where the past doesn't fade. It joins the present, shaping the way forward. And so, as the light fades or begins anew, you realize what defines this country isn't only its beauty, it's its spirit. Proud, patient, and unbreakably alive. The spirit of the North, eternal, untamed, and unforgettable. But what do you think? Let us know in the comment section below.